Chapter 37, Section 1. All right, so for almost 100 years after Napoleon, there were no huge wars that broke out in Europe. But by the time you get to the early 1900s, things are going to change. Tension had begun to grow in several countries. France was jealous of Germany. Germany was rapidly industrializing. Great Britain didn't like Germany. Germany was trying to expand its navy, and Great Britain historically had been the naval power. Russia had conflict with Austria-Hungary, trying to protect the Slavic people. And so, what we're going to look at in these notes is we're going to look at the causes of World War I. And so there's going to be a variety of causes of this war. So we will go through four of them, four causes of World War I. So let's begin with the first one. Alliances were a cause of World War I. Basically, countries were promising aid to other countries if they were attacked. So let's take a look here with the map here. So Germany was trying to isolate France. So Germany and France had fought in the Franco-Prussian War back in 1870 to 1871, and Germany won. So Germany beat France in the Franco-Prussian War, and Germany is going to take some of France's territory called Alsace and Lorraine. Okay, so they fought this war. It's over. Germany gets some of their land. They get Alsace and Lorraine. The countries still didn't like each other, obviously. And so Germany begins to make alliances with France's neighbors. So Germany makes an alliance with Austria-Hungary. Germany also makes an alliance with Italy. In addition, Germany will make an alliance with Russia. But this alliance is not real strong because Russia and Austria-Hungary hate each other and they can't get along. And so Germany has to decide, and they drop Russia. And so you're going to end up with an alliance called the Triple Alliance, which will be made up of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. Now remember, the whole purpose of this alliance by Germany was to be against France. Well, France is watching all of this, and they're a little fearful. Germany's getting a lot of power here. And so France immediately picks up Russia, says, hey, Russia, Germany didn't want you. We'll take you. Britain will also join France because, again, Britain is a little fearful of the German sea power. And Germany and Britain are kind of rivals in Africa for colonies. Problem, though, France has to ease the tension between Britain and Russia because Britain and Russia didn't necessarily get along. But Tsar Nicholas II, who is the leader of Russia, realizes Germany's getting stronger and Russia can't afford to be left out here by himself. And so Nicholas II is going to ease this tension. He's going to make this work. And so you're going to end up with what's called the Triple Entente. France, Britain, and Russia. It's actually more of a friendly understanding. It wasn't a huge military alliance, but when Germany saw it, Germany saw this as a huge threat because Germany was surrounded east and west by this alliance. So Germany's not happy with this alliance at all. Which brings us to this quote right here. Otto von Bismarck, 1879 in Germany, says, the great powers of our time are like travelers, unknown to one another, whom chance has brought together in a carriage. They watch each other, and when one of them puts his hand in his pocket, his neighbor gets ready his own revolver in order to be able to fire the first shot. All the way back in 1879, there was this mistrust. They avoid war for a long time. But with all of these alliances, the risk of a chain reaction was huge. People take more chances when they have alliances. They know, well, somebody already has my back. And so they take more chances. And so alliances are definitely going to be one of the causes of World War I. Cause number 2, militarism. Militarism is simply the glorification of military strength. I mean, historically, in Europe, here's how things went. Large European countries would try to overpower small European countries. And if two countries had an issue, they settled it on the battlefield. Well, what this is going to lead to is an arms race. Because if you know that if there's any conflicts, it's going to be settled on the battlefield, you had to be ready. And so everybody was trying to have the larger army, the more powerful weapons. And you had militaries being built up all over Europe. A country's first defense, was actually first strike. If they look like they're going to attack you, you don't wait till they do. You hit them first strike. Well, with all of this glorification of militarism, the chances of two countries using diplomacy and sitting down and figuring out peaceful solutions to their problems wasn't going to happen. So militarism is definitely a cause of this huge First World War. A third cause is going to be imperialism. Countries were continually looking to expand. Imperialism is this quest for colonial empires. Here's the bottom line. Countries are wanting to expand. You either expand by you take your boundaries and you make your country bigger, or you expand by you start getting more colonies. Bottom line is this. If your country is expanding, then somebody else is losing land. That's going to lead to fighting. It's going to lead to wars. Nobody wants to lose land. So imperialism is definitely a cause of World War I. And the fourth one is nationalism. Nationalism is feelings of devotion to and pride in one's own country. This extreme level of nationalism is going to be a problem. Some level of nationalism is not an issue. Extreme nationalism becomes an issue. That's when people become quick to answer and less likely to use any kind of reason or think about what they're doing. French nationalists, they want Alsace and Lorraine. They want it back. They lost that. Remember, they lost that in the Franco-Prussian War. German nationalists, they thought Germany should expand even more. Everybody should be able to get the privilege of being ruled by the Germans. Russian pan-Slavists, they wanted Russia to rule all the Slavs of Eastern Europe. But the area where nationalism is going to be the strongest is going to be in the Balkans. Nationalism is going to be so high in the Balkans that the Balkans are actually going to be referred to as the powder keg of Europe, meaning the tiniest little spark could set this off, this powder keg in the Balkans. Now, historically, the Balkans had been controlled by the Ottoman Empire. But as the Ottoman Empire is losing power, they're starting to leave the Balkans. And so what you've got is you've got four main ethnic groups in the area of the Balkans. You had Albanians, you had Greeks, you had Romanians, and you had Slavs. Each of them wanted their own independence. The Albanians wanted to rule themselves, and the Greeks themselves, the Romanians themselves, the Slavs themselves. So one part of the Balkans was an area called Bosnia and Herzegovina. The thing is, Austria-Hungary occupied Bosnia and Herzegovina. The people of Bosnia and Herzegovina, many of them were Slavic. They weren't Austrian. They weren't Hungarian. The country of Serbia, right there in the middle there, the country of Serbia, they thought that Bosnia and Herzegovina should be theirs. That Serbia was a Slavic country. They're like, why wouldn't the other Slavs be part of Serbia? Well, Austria-Hungary had zero interest in letting Bosnia and Herzegovina go, and they're actually becoming very annoyed by Serbia's growing power and insistence that Bosnia and Herzegovina should be theirs. So these are the 4 causes of World War I.